Katie, thank you for joining us today. Katie Leinenkugel is with, of course, her family's namesake company. But I'd like you to kind of talk a little bit more about your role there. And because it sounds like you do more than just work on what I would call the liney line.
Yeah,
Can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah, absolutely. So out of college, actually, I moved down to Dallas, Texas with Teach for America, and I was a teacher for 2 years. And then I was a principal of an elementary school for another 5 years. And after that, like I just felt this calling to come home to Wisconsin. And I've always known I wanted to be in beer and business eventually. So I got my MBA in Texas and came back home to Wisconsin. So I worked on the Liney's brand team for a good 3 years, learned a lot about marketing in that time. And then I wanted to try something new. And I went into sales, which has always scared me before that. I always thought sales was like, think of it like cold calling. I thought I was going to have to like pick up the phone and be like, do you want to buy our beer? And have people hang up on me. But it wasn't like that at all. And I was managing our partnerships with four of our distributors out of central Wisconsin. And I just absolutely fell in love with sales. I think it was the people aspect of it. It
Sure.
was just so much fun for me. And then after that, just recently, just in the past 5 weeks, I have transitioned to a new role that marries my background in education with my background in sales. So I am running our new sales rotational program for the entirety of Molson Coors. So we're hiring 10 people a year. These are young professionals right out of college, and they're starting this 2 year rotational program. And I
Okay.
get to be the one to like build the program, write the curriculum for it, and then coach and develop the young talent that's in the program. So it's like a dream role for me. I'm very excited about it. It's been a perfect challenge for me in these last 5 weeks, but I'm already loving it. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And I was telling you earlier just that like it's nice, and it's a nice shift to not only be online in Google's. That part of my work will always be around, of course,
Sure.
but to get to just be in the broader picture of the Molson Coors portfolio and impact the larger company has been really great for me.
Okay. So you're actually your background at education was you have a teaching degree or whatever
I
then?
don't have a teaching
Oh,
degree.
okay.
Actually, my degree from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities was advertising and journalism
Okay.
and management. But the point of Teach for America, the program that I did, is really to get, they say, the best and the brightest. I don't know if I'm part of that, but the best and the brightest, and put them into underserved communities for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I just ended up staying. And education, particularly specifically adult education, I just fell in love with. And now it's what I get to do today.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, that's pretty cool. Yeah, when you first said you were marrying your background with beer, I thought maybe you were, taking testing kits to schools or something.
Not
Just
quite.
kidding. Anyway, that's good to know. Okay. Um, wow. Okay. Could you give us a little background too on, so I want to get into how your family has sold the business, because I think that's something that all of our families want to hear more about as
For
far
sure.
as a unique succession opportunity, one that people don't think about. But maybe before that, you could just give us a quick rundown of how things all got started in Chippewa. You know,
Yes, if you have 157 years
I do.
of time, I will go through it. No. So we are now, if I can do really fast math, which is not my forte, but we're about 157, 158 years old. My great grandfather, Jacob Leinenkugel, and his family came over from Meckenheim, Germany in 1845. They came up through the port of Milwaukee and settled in Sauk City,
Okay.
Wisconsin. My great grandfather, Jacob, his dad was an innkeeper and a brewer back in Germany. So he had taught his four sons how to brew beer. And so eventually all four sons would own and operate their own breweries throughout Wisconsin, Baraboo, Sauk City, Eau Claire, and then Jacob would settle in Chippewa Falls with his business partner, John Miller, who's not related to Frederick Miller of Miller Brewing Company. Um, they would establish the Spring Brewing Company in 1867, and their partnership ended up dissolving a little bit, but not their friendship. They're still buried together
Oh,
today,
cool.
not
Oh,
together
cool.
next to each other,
I understand.
best friends till the end. So anyway, the family made it through Prohibition, and the brewery, I should say, made it through Prohibition because they were brewing apparently a near beer, a non-alc beer called Lino.
Okay.
From all history and accounts of it, it was a really terrible beer, but it kept them busy. But they were also brewing Kist sodas, Kist. And these sodas, we were looking at advertisements for them when we had our 150th anniversary in 2017. And we saw that some of the ads said mixes well with anything. So you got to believe that there were people, brewing some bathtub gin that they needed some good mixers for. And apparently that's where we filled a niche there.
Okay.
The women of the family are really the sort of unsung heroes who got us through Prohibition. Jacob's daughter, Susan, who was the first and only female president so far in the company's history. She led the company through Prohibition, and then Rose Leinenkugel, or Rose Casper, she married into the family. She was the one to work through the logistics and the legalities and refinancing her home to get the capital to get the brewery up and running again. So
Okay.
yeah, third generation, the family was now, it had, through ancestry had built into three families now. So there were the Leinenkugels and the Casper family, and now I'm forgetting one. Um, this was a long time ago for
Don't
me.
be a test. That's all right.
Yeah, right. Exactly. My dad could rattle off all this information like the back of his hand. But those three families were the owners of the brewery
Uh-huh.
through the third generation. And then the fourth generation was my grandpa, Grandpa Bill. And around 1987, 88, he got a letter from Miller Brewing Company at the time. And he brought that to the board president or board chair at the time, who was his cousin or
Mhm.
one of the other family members.
Yep.
And he said, "Well, Bill, what do you think they want from us?" And my sweet grandpa said, "I think they want us to buy them." Of course, it was the other way around. Miller Brewing Company wanted to buy us, Leinenkugels, and they did. And so that took place in 1988. I believe it was finalized in 89. But in buying Leinenkugels back then, they really said and sold it to my grandpa and the board as a, we really want the family to stay involved. It's not often you find a family brewery that is for, at that point, five generations in, that's still intact with five generations of family history there. So they said, we want you guys to stay involved. We want you guys to be running this brewery, stay as president of the brewery, and, lead sales and marketing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so here we are, six generations later. I'm part of the sixth generation of the family. And my cousin Tony is still the president, and my dad just retired. Uncle John still works for the company. My Aunt Lynn still works for the company. They are fifth generation. And then me, Tony, and Matt, we are sixth generation that are still part of the family, still in the brewing industry today. So that's kind of the story there, but we've been involved the whole time.
Okay. That's pretty crazy. So when your grandpa got this letter, was your dad, Dick, I think is your dad,
Mhm, mhm.
were his brothers and sisters, sister-in-law,
Yep.
in law were those already fifth generations working there in the late 80s?
They were. From what I'm told of this story, my dad had just come out of the Marine Corps, and just come out. He worked in a sports marketing company for a while after the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And he was just getting back into the beer business. Um, and at that time, my uncle Jake was working as a sales guy in Chicago. And my dad had to write a business proposal of why he deserved to come to the company and work for my grandpa
Okay.
and fill in, a need.
Yeah.
And so from what he's been told, they brought it to the board and it was not a unanimous decision, but he was voted back into the company. And he would be with Molson Coors. I think he, you know, on and off 30 some years with Molson Coors. He did take a little bit of a break. He worked for the governor here in Wisconsin as the commerce secretary
Oh,
for a
wow.
few years. But
Okay.
yes,
I didn't realize it. Oh, that's cool. Okay. So this whole, this whole uniqueness of selling the company but still running it. I mean,
yeah,
it's really unique. And I think
it
something
is.
that frankly, as a frequent drinker of Liney product, I never realized that. I always thought that your family sold it
Yeah,
and that was that. And
yep,
corporates at, Molson or whoever, whatever were running
yeah.
through. So can you tell me a little bit about, where you think, I don't know, like was that a mandated protection for future generations that Bill did?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Okay.
I'm not sure that it's in writing anywhere if that exists. I've not been told that.
Yeah.
But from all of my experiences, there is a really large group of people in Molson Coors that see the value of the Leinenkugel brewery
Hmm.
being operated by family members and having that story to tell. And when you're in a company like Molson Coors, there's a Molson family and there's a Coors family. So it's a company that very much values these family roots and being able to tell the story behind the brands that we sell. It's just been it's been great.
Okay.
And I think because we have all of these people in the company that share these values and know the importance of this and the loyalty behind it,
Yep.
it's helped us have advocates along the way to make sure that our family gets to stay in these places,
Yeah.
or at least, remain involved as much as we can. So the company, I would say, like our parent company, which a lot of times can feel in other companies, I'm sure, like an ivory tower that
Oh,
just
yeah.
sort of hands out decisions.
Right.
They've To me, it's felt like they've really valued us as a family, and everybody who works for Leinenkugels, because it's not just the Leinenkugel family in our brewery. There are plenty of generations of families that have
Yeah.
worked throughout our history as well. So it's multiple families, and I just think it's something that makes us so unique as a brewery today.
Okay. Yeah.
A
So,
lot of these craft breweries coming in that don't necessarily have that same story to tell.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Categories obviously changed a lot over time.
Yes, it has.
Um, that's interesting for you to mention that ownership, family ownership kind of history of in your industry that maybe has helped preserve that and some of the branding that's in it.
Hmm.
Anyways, was there, a common question that our families have to face is who gets to work in the business and who doesn't type of thing. And
Yeah.
you mentioned that you've got two others of the sixth generation with you. Your
Yep.
cousin was president, and then I think you said Matt as well. And I was just curious, um, how does that work for you guys to be able to
Yeah,
come in? Do you have siblings that aren't there? Do you have?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a great question. I really feel like since we were born in our family and in my dad's siblings' families,
Hmm.
it's always been our choice. It's never been forced upon us. I always would ask my parents, like, what should I do when I grow up?
Yeah.
And they were always like, whatever you want to do. And I think that was, maybe intentionally or unintentionally. one reason why I went into education after undergrad was just to sort of maybe prove to myself that I could do something else without my name attached to it,
Yeah,
and still be successful. And
right.
um, yeah, I have an older brother who is in education still, and I have a twin sister who works in Milwaukee as a marketing manager for a local floral company. I've got a cousin who is a jeweler. Tony's brother is actually a jeweler. He made my engagement ring
Okay.
recently. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think all that to say, just like we've always been encouraged to do whatever it is that we have passion around. And Tony and I both experienced corporations and work outside of Molson Coors and outside of the beer industry. He was in telecom before
Okay.
this. And we both sort of gravitated toward it because I think when, it's been in your family for so long, you have this sense of, maybe not loyalty is that's probably the wrong word, but maybe just a sense of like pride
Yeah,
around it and just wanting
absolutely.
to see it do well, and wanting to be a part of that.
Yeah, when
So
you associate yourself. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, tradition is definitely a big thing for us. So
Yeah. I mean, I think every family has traditions, when they're business related, they're even just augmented that, exponentially more. So,
yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
And so then it was just kind of a conversation that you and your dad had as far as, I think I'm getting burned out on this teaching thing, or I'm
Yeah.
technically too damn hot, or whatever it was.
Gosh, I'd have to even like remember how this went. I think I knew that teaching wasn't it forever for me. And I
Yeah.
think I knew that pretty early on. But I got my MBA toward the end because I knew I wanted to make that transition from education to business or
Mhm.
beer or whatever that was going to look like. And I had convinced my dad actually that I needed the MBA. He kept saying, like, you do not need an MBA to work in the beer business. And I kept telling him, like, I just want to make sure that when I'm in the room, I feel like I deserve to be there.
Yeah.
And so for me, uh, it was like a reason for me to go get that MBA just for like a confidence, call it a confidence factor or whatever. But I just wanted to make sure that like I wasn't there because of my last name. I was there because I had earned the right to be there.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so then, let's see here. The same for Matt and Travis, as far as they're kind of getting back into the business too, was.
So Tony, yeah, Tony had
Oh, I'm
been,
sorry.
yeah, it's okay. Tony had been with telecom for I think like 10 years.
Oh, quite a
Yeah,
while.
he's a good 10 years older than me, 12
Okay.
years older than me actually.
Okay.
And he had been with telecom for quite a while. And I think, yeah, I would think I think he and my dad had started talking. My dad had started thinking about his succession plan, and convinced Tony actually to join the company. So that was definitely different for me. My dad did not convince me to join the company. I essentially convinced him I should be in the company. But
Okay.
he asked Tony to join and said that his intentions were for Tony to succeed him. And that is what ended up happening. I would say maybe 8 years after Tony joined the company. So um, that was always the plan for Tony. But Matt worked in our brewery for quite some time as a safety and environmental manager,
Okay.
and is now he's working for the Liney Lodge actually, which is based in Chippewa Falls, and it's like our yeah, it's our hospitality center. So he
I
does kind of
believe that.
odds and ends stuff there, and he loves it.
I was at the old one back in the early 2000s, right before they
Yeah,
announced.
yeah. The new one opened in 2003, so
Yeah,
that
I've been
makes
to that one
sense.
too.
Yep, yep.
Still
That one's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. Now I guess that one's 20 years old. Holy cow.
Yeah, 21 celebrated 21st birthday this year.
Okay. In terms of like kind of direction for the family's interaction with the business going forward, is there, any plans that you have as a family to do anything differently than you have for the now what's been a couple generations worth of this post-sale kind of operation?
Yeah, I, I think one thing that really Tony has a strong vision around is in innovation. When you're a 157, 58-year-old Germanic brewery with all of this history,
Mhm.
it's not always easy to play to the landscape of beer and the landscape of alcoholic beverages these days. You've seen it just explode in the
Yeah,
past few years. And
choice.
so
And
yeah, and so Tony's taken a real investment and put a real investment into innovation. And so we have established two pilot breweries here in Wisconsin, one at American Family Field, we still call it Miller Park, where the Brewers play in Milwaukee, and the other at our Liney Lodge in Chippewa Falls. And these pilot systems are 3 to 7 barrel systems that can brew much smaller batches. We don't have to go all in with
sure,
100 barrel batches. And we hired two new pilot brewers. One came from a company in Spain, and one came from another craft brewery here in the US, and they're both so talented, and they get to just play and come up with ideas and try new things. And it's been really great to see the things that they've come up with. I won't tell you what the beer is yet, but there's a beer likely coming out next year that came from one of these pilot breweries, and I think it can do really, really well. In addition to that, we do have a beer out right now called Liney's Lakeside Cherry and Juicy Peach. Those both came from our pilot systems. So it's a way to get immediate feedback too. People can try it right when it's done at the Liney Lodge, and it's been really great. Innovation is definitely something we've talked a lot about. So I can see our company and our brewery going toward that landscape, but also keeping who we are at the forefront. So always having Liney's Original available, and Honey Vice and Berry Vice.
yeah. I mean, I feel
So
like since I've come of the beer drinking age, like I've always associated Leinenkugel with being the seasonal and the flavor,
mhm.
the dare to try things type of brewery. And so
Yeah,
it's cool to hear that that is still, very much a part of your culture as a product line, and that
yep.
what sounds to me then like your parent company hasn't done much to stifle or change much of how you're operated, would you say?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they've been very supportive of constantly innovating. And I think our biggest challenge lately, Daniel, has been localizing our brewery again. When we
Okay,
came out with Summer Shandy in 2006, 2007, it blew our brand up nationally and internationally, actually. And so
okay,
people knew us and still know us for Summer Shandy. They don't know where it's from. They don't know that there's a story behind it. They don't know it's a 157-year-old brewery. And we even experience that here in Wisconsin. We have a lot of bars that say we only carry local here. And we have to constantly battle and tell them we are local. We're
okay.
right up the road from you, or we're like an hour away.
Yeah,
And so that's been a big challenge for us. And I think we've done some things to combat that. A lot of the people we work with now, and especially with like social media and influencers, for example, Charlie Barron's is probably a name
oh yeah,
familiar to you guys in Iowa.
sure.
But him and Christian Yelich of the Brewers have really helped us sort of like reestablish ourselves as Midwest and Wisconsin locals. So that's been helpful, but it's definitely still a challenge. And we're working on it every day.
So maybe that is one little piece of the other side of the coin of
Absolutely.
selling to a much larger footprinted company, giving you a much bigger distribution network and firepower in lots and lots of ways, while still giving you the keys to it, is maybe a little bit of continuing to uh, push the message out there that, we still run this thing, and for the most part, things haven't changed really in terms of how we bring the beer to market or how we make the beer or anything related to the product, I suppose. Right?
Yep. 100%.
Okay. Huh. Well, my guest is Katie Leinenkugel today, and she's been gracious enough to give us some time to talk a little bit about their, I would call it unique succession plan. And it wasn't like your grandfather was looking for a succession plan at the time or anything like that, right? I'm guessing you had three, four, five people to pick from, or combine between them. And you were not even born, you say, as when that was happening. So from the family legacy piece that you've been able to hear over the years from your father and others is, was it pretty, was it a proceed with trepidation type of decision? Was it, but hey, this is exciting. Let's do this. Do you have any inklings on how that went for your family?
I don't
Okay.
have much experience or stories to share there. From what I think I understood, the two families that were not the Leinenkugel families that they were excited to sell. They wanted to sell.
Okay.
And I think it was maybe a little trepidatious then for my grandpa. But I think what sold him was the idea of keeping the family involved. Even after the sale, he remained president for years.
Oh, he
And then
did.
he did for a few more years. And then my uncle Jake took over, I want to say maybe in 1995.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, so that was never in question. It was never in question that the family was going to stay involved. And I think that's really what sold my grandpa, was just knowing that not only was there this succession plan or whatever, but there was some security in it
Yeah.
for his family
His
as
family
well.
would be able to continue to run it, which I think is
Yeah.
really cool and something I never would have guessed until we stumbled upon finding you and then hearing a little bit more
Yeah.
about that. So um, let's see here. I think that's about all I really wanted to ask you about. It's just again kind of the uniqueness of that. It sounds like it's mostly been an understanding amongst, probably your family and the other families and powers that be. And hasn't needed to have a lot of scripted contractual language or, and those are always usually the best. I mean, I've
Yeah.
always heard that Coke and McDonald's were a handshake agreement, right? And
Yeah.
that stayed the test of time too. So, uh,
I've never seen anything written down, Daniel. I'll put it that way.
okay. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. And I think it just gives our families maybe another point of view to think about when they think about selling or succession in general
Mhm.
is how, maybe this is an option that I never even really thought of type of thing. So I
Yeah,
appreciate you sharing that story with us, Katie. It's
of
really
course.
cool. As I said, I always equate Liney's with summer and I'll definitely be having a couple this weekend. My niece is graduating, and so the Wisconsin family will be here for that. So we're
Oh,
excited.
great.
Yeah. Thank you so
Amazing.
much for your time, Katie, and
Oh, you're more
appreciate
than
it. It was
welcome.
really cool.
More than
Thank you.
welcome.
All right.
Happy to do it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Never Go Against the Family, a podcast produced by the University of Northern Iowa Family Business Center. You can find more information about the center, membership, and upcoming events at unifamilybusinesscenter.com. As Vito Corleone advises, never go against the family.